Hello everyone. It's Amber Carlton with Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices Premier Properties. Let's see if we can't get you centered here. How's it going? Please put any comments in the comments below if you have questions through this. I am just basking in the sun right now. I'm so excited to just see blue skies and sun for a change. Very thrilled about it. Anyways, so today we're going to be talking about buyer representation and what that means and kind of how it even became a thing. And if you haven't bought a house since the 80s, you have no idea what I'm talking about because it wasn't a thing in the past. So I'm going to give you just kind of the rundown on how it used to be, why it changed, where we are now, and those differences, okay? Once again, questions, put them in the comments below. Love to answer those for you. Even later on as a recording, I will get back to you right away and let you know. So, okay, buyer representation. What buyer representation even means is that you as a buyer buying a home actually have representation by a realtor. Back in the day, it was all the sellers. So the sellers had all the power. Everything happened through the sellers. So the term buyer beware kind of came from that type of an area, or it would make sense for that situation. So everyone worked for the seller. Absolutely everyone worked for the seller. And then there would be a sub-agent for the buyer, but they still represented the seller, which is crazy. So you could have a park company agent, and I've got the listing. This is back in the day. I've got the listing, and it's 1975, let's say. I have the listing, a park company agent actually knows someone who wants to buy the home, yet the park company agent, who doesn't know the sellers at all, they know the buyers, they were still obligated to represent the sellers, which really doesn't make any sense, right? So that evolved, that changed, thank goodness. That's, why our law and all of these things keep growing, evolving, and changing as they need to, as they should. So somewhere along the lines, right in about the 1990s, it sounded like, buyer brokerage, buyer representation, buyer agency was formed. And this split the two sides. So seller has their listing agent, they represent seller. Buyer has their buyer agent, their buyer representation, and their brokerage, and they represent buyer in their best interests, okay? We do get some crossover with dual agency. In Minnesota, anyone in the same brokerage, so like Berkshire Hathaway has 65 realtors, we're all dual agency because we're all in the same brokerage, which is kind of silly. I have no idea what's going on with Pat Carley's clients. She doesn't really know what's going on with my clients. We've been trying to fight that and get more of an appointed agency like we have in North Dakota to be able to fully represent our clients, unless we truly are representing buyer and seller, which does happen sometimes. I just had one close where I represented seller, had the listing, buyer found me on social media, came in, they wanted me to help them move forward with the purchase. That's dual agency at its finest. You have to walk a fine line. You don't get to advocate for either side. Facts and truth to each side, neutral line. So knowing what type of representation you have when you're buying and selling a home is huge. And if you haven't bought or sold a home, once again, since, the 80s, it's very common for people to just call the listing agent, we can help you. At that point, we're going to need to facilitate into a dual agency situation. If you've got someone that you've worked with for a really long time and you really trust them and that's your go-to, you should call them. They can get you into the home and they can fully represent you and advocate for you, which in dual agency, you can't have that advocation anymore. You have to be neutral. So things to consider. You don't need to just call whoever's on the sign. Go to who you trust. Have them kind of guide you through it. Let's see here. What else do I want you to know about that? So it has kind of shifted from buyer beware to seller take care. There's a lot more seller disclosure that's needed now, which is good. You should disclose anything you know about the property. It's not a bad thing. You've owned the home. You know what's happened. You know what you've fixed. You need to disclose what you know, right? It's not saying that the home is horrible, don't buy it. That's not it at all. It's just releasing you from liability as a seller, protecting you, CYOB, right? And then it's giving the buyer that information to know, hey, this was an issue before. It's been corrected. It's not an issue anymore. Okay. So yeah, it's really, really shifted over the course of the last 30 years. It's completely different than what it was 35, 40 years ago. There are certain areas still that don't operate with a buyer representation. Kind of interesting. I believe in buyer representation totally and completely. You should have someone there guiding you through the process and letting you know all of the different things. And in the right situation, being able to advocate for you, being able to advise you as to what you would do in that situation is very, very helpful. So we see it sometimes, or even just with a lot of the listings I've just gotten calls right off the sign. And one of them I even said, if there's someone you work with, you don't get a deal necessarily to use the listing agent. There are some listing agents that do a variable commission. There are some situations where you could do owner prospects, where those situations would have a benefit to the seller of paying out less commission. They're not super common. It's all just fixed. This is what it is. And it's the same for absolutely everyone. So I don't have any issues on this person said you did it for this amount. No, I keep it the same for everyone. So it's all fair. So you're not going to get a deal on that for a lot of different agents. Can vary a little bit, but most of the time that won't save you anything. So there's really no reason not to have that representation. Yeah, I think that kind of covers it. Know your basics, know where to start. All of our listings are on the MLS for the most part, unless it's an in-house, and then we cannot share it with anyone outside of our brokerage. That Clear Cooperation changed that. So it's not going to matter who you contact to have you show the home. If they're a licensed realtor who's on the MLS, they can show you absolutely any home. So, hi Jess. I hope this adds some clarity. If you have questions, let me know. It can be confusing to talk a little bit more about all the different types of agency there are between dual agency and buyer representation, buyer agency, and listing representation, representing those sellers. So we are here to help you. We're here to help you into your next home and help answer any questions you have. So feel free to put those below. Reach out, call or text. I hope you have a super wonderful weekend. I hope this sunshine stays and it doesn't go away. Hopefully. Anyways, take care, you guys.